I think some people are already on here. Autumn Nichols, yes. Okay, it says I've got bad stream, but I think you probably can still hear me. Okay, Autumn Nichols is in. QP! Shari D. Ben, Clyde Ewing, Carolyn Thranen. Those are the recent ones. Let's see who came by earlier. KSP Crafter, Esther Anders, Divided We Fall, Chanty Moody, Research 5G, Teresa Lynch. All right, I think that's everybody who's commenting. So welcome, everybody. Okay, it's been a busy week for me. First, I had on the weekend, I spent all weekend moving these heavy shelves, industrial metal shelves, so I'm pretty pooped out. Then we got all the crazy winds in California and some nasty wildfires. Luckily for me, the wildfires are not really near my house, but the nasty winds took out power all over Southern California, including my house, and it was out for about a day and a half. I think that part of it was that they goofed up when they were trying to turn on the power again, because they said they were going to fix it last night, and then suddenly they weren't going to fix it till today, and a friend of mine saw them removing a melted down transformer and pouring new cement where the transformer used to be. So it sounds like when they turned on the power, they ran through too much through the transformer and fried the heck out of it. So that resulted in another 12 plus hours of them goofing around before they got the power on. So that's my excuse for this week for being a little bit behind on the messages, but I'm still only 2 days behind because I spent like hours later today catching up. But anyways, for a while there, I did not know if I was going to get this live stream in, but I did make it. But I want to go over some things with the California weather. Now, if you guys have been paying attention, there's supposed to be record winds, insane fires, even worse than last year. Another thing that I've really noticed that these fires are further north than they usually are. Now, there's a couple things. The last few years, it's been hot much later than normal. Usually the September is about the end of our hot season. October, November are cold. Halloween should be cold, and so should Thanksgiving. Last year, Thanksgiving was like 98 degrees outside. That's freaking hot. And so we're trying to cook Thanksgiving dinner. The house was sweltering. This is just something that's been happening the last couple years. Another thing that's been happening is we have this kind of wind called the Santa Ana wind. And I've never heard of Santa Ana winds until I moved to Los Angeles quite some years ago. And we had them down here in the south. So it was in Los Angeles. And now here in San Diego, they've had the Santa Anas for a long time. And they're a wind that back in the day, I was told, came from the east off of the deserts. And the result was that because they had been over the hot desert, the winds had become very hot and very dry due to the desert. Very logical. Then they would blow across here, going. And one thing unique about these is these winds came from the east. That is the opposite direction from our normal winds. I actually have this door at work that we leave open all the time. It's actually kind of a window door. It's a weird layout, but basically we can leave it hanging open for air all year except for during Santa Anas because the winds reverse and then the door slams shut. So the Santa Anas usually end about September because then we switch into the freezing cold cycle. We have cold rains and normal winds, and the winds come from the normal direction, which is more north and west direction. So what's been happening the last few years is the Santa Anas have been going later and later into the last few months, October and November. And we never had it that late before. So this year, it's kicked it up a notch, and I've noticed a few things. Now, some years ago, maybe 4 years ago, I started hearing them called the Santa Ana winds, the devil winds. And I really didn't think much of it But now I've been hearing about these Santa Ana winds in Northern California. Now I grew up in Northern California and they never had Santa Ana winds. They didn't have hot, dry winds in Northern California. It was never hot, dry winds. I grew up there. I lived my, half my life there. No, 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 no. But apparently now they have Santa Ana-like devil winds, and they call them Diablo winds, which is Spanish for devil. And they're saying that it's like Santa Ana winds, only they call them Diablo winds. And then sometimes there's a confusion between Santa Ana and Diablo winds because they're the same basic thing. This is baloney. But basically, these Santa Ana winds are fueling a lot of these Northern California fires. And we just never had that bad of fires up north before. But now you're really seeing it. So I wanted to point out that California, in my memory, was not quite bent this much. It was, and the coast here is a little bit chewed out. So in my old memory, the coast was more here, and it wasn't so angled, and that kind of comes into play here. Look at these Santa Ana winds. They're saying that the winds come from the east and then they bend down because they're supposed to go through the canyons here. Now, in my old timeline, they would just come straight east, but since the coast was here, you didn't need to have this bend for them to be easterly. And they would say that they would just come east and would tend to concentrate down the canyons. But now they're basically saying the canyons funnel the wind and change its direction. So that's a slight change in the storyline. Also, a change in the way the winds are being tracked here. There's an additional change in what they're saying now, which is interesting because we're getting these later Santa Ana winds. Another thing I did notice, this time they were saying it was Santa Ana winds, but my door that always slams shut during Santa Ana winds is not slamming shut for the first time ever during a Santa Ana. And they're also saying now that Santa Anas become hot and dry for this weird bunch of, try to read this whole, if they're calling it katabatic winds because they flow downhill and the change in the altitude changes the high pressure, blah, blah. It's really complicated, but I've never heard this yammer before. So they're actually saying now that the Santa Ana winds become hotter and drier than the desert, which was never possible before because they used to become hot and dry due to the desert. But now, during Santa Ana conditions, it is typically hotter along the coast than in the deserts. That's totally new for me. With the Southern California coastal region reaching some of its highest annual temperatures in autumn rather than summer. Now, that's not quite right. It used to be really the end of summer, the beginning of autumn that we would get Santa Anas, not way late now. So there's kind of a shift in the whole storyline there, which I find really interesting. So I wanted to bring that one up. And here they're talking about these Diablo winds from up north. Has been occasionally used for the hot, dry wind from the northeast that typically occurs in San Francisco Bay Area of Northern California. Now, I grew up in that region, and no hot, dry winds and no Diablo winds during the spring and fall. The same wind pattern also affects other parts of California's coastal ranges. The term first appeared shortly after 1991 Oakland firestorm. Okay, now I do remember the Oakland firestorm. I don't remember any hot, dry winds. It was just a nasty fire. There wasn't any special bad winds back then. Apparently now there were. It was just a nasty fire. Perhaps to distinguish it from the comparable and more familiar hot, dry wind in Southern California known as Santa Ana winds. In fact, in decades previous to the 91 fire, the term Santa Ana was occasionally used as well for the Bay Area dry northeasterly wind. Nope, not in my timeline. That wasn't the case. Oakland firestorm did not really have bad winds. It was hot. We used to get, definitely we would get hot, but there were no hot, dry winds. In fact, Northern California, it was cold winds when it blew, and it was the winter. So just kind of freaking me out there. Anyway, I don't know. This all probably doesn't mean a lot to you guys, but me as a Californian, it does mean a lot to me. The other thing I wanted to bring up was that just the way the wind is. I don't know if you guys have really noticed it. I have noticed this the last few years. It used to be when it was windy and you were on the ground, it felt pretty windy on the ground. One thing I've really noticed lately especially is that although there could be huge winds up in the trees, I don't really feel it that much standing on the ground. It's like the wind is hitting higher up, and the wind speed on the actual surface of the ground really close is weaker. So I can see the trees flailing like crazy, but on the ground it's not bad at all or almost none. So that's another change that I've really noticed with the winds. Not to mention the fact that the winds this year are probably the highest I've ever seen before. The last 2 years there's been almost no wind. This last 2 days we've had some of the highest winds I have ever seen, as far as at least the flailing of the trees. I'm lucky myself that none of my trees came down, but a lot of trees have. So anyway, that's the Santa Ana spiel. I'm going to close down all that stuff. So anyway, yeah, some of the worst fires ever, probably due to some of the worst winds and heat ever, much further north than ever, in my memory. Okay, so let's get on to the regular scheduled wind gets slowed by land, blah, blah. Yeah, well, whatever. It's just different than it was before is my point. Oops, I don't want that one up. I mean, I'm not saying that wind never got slowed by land. It's just a lot more now than it used to be. Guess what year, Jared, the subway guy got arrested and charged? I think that was like about 5 years ago. I saw somebody was saying that that's an Emmy. I'm always hesitant to get really sure on those timeline ones. If it's just a few years, it's something I could goof up on. The first years ago when I first heard of El Nino, you know, that's a good point, Shari D. When El Nino was first mentioned, I had never heard of it, maybe almost about 20 years ago. It kind of came out of the blue. I'd never heard of it. You have to wonder if everything just kind of shows up like that, and maybe it's been doing this for a long time. But yeah, I'd never heard of it, and now then for years after that, it was El Nino, another El Nino. It was yeah, all the time El Nino, but I never heard of it before that. So that is a good point. So anyways, let's see what we're doing here. Eva, you look slightly different. Not sure what is different, though. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes my hair grows out really. Oh, you know, I actually re-dyed my hair since last week, so it might look a little more red. All right. And every week it's going to hang different because it hangs different according to length and humidity and all that stuff, too. All right. Where are we now? All right, I'm pretty sure this one was from Bob Bobertson. He was just mentioning how dogs and animals seem a lot smarter. I think we've seen a lot of examples of that on the channel. This particular one, dexterity-wise, I've never seen a dog. Maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, they started showing dogs that could sort of skateboard. Like they would kind of stand on it. And then they would do like 5 or 10 feet and then fall off. That was it. But in the last 2 years, I've seen quite a number of dogs that can really, really skateboard, drive a car, and do all kinds of things. This one kind of takes the cake This whole video, the most amazing trained dog ever, must see. There's all kinds of neat things this dog can do, but this one just kind of takes the cake for me, and that is, I'll just play it. So he doesn't just skateboard, he can
all right,
do
Jumpy.
all kinds
Time
of
to go to
stuff.
bed.
Now, some of this other stuff doesn't seem
Hurry
that
up.
much to me, but just the dexterity of this dog just seems a little bit too much. There's another
Back
one.
it up. Back it.
I just
Back it up.
double backflip. I just having trouble. I've never seen a dog be able to do that
Back it
type
up.
of backflip. I think there's something fishy going on with that, but anyways, the dexterity level of these dogs, it's just a little too much for me. Monkeys that smoke, yeah, dogs have been doing it for years in circus. Not to that extent in my timeline. Yes, they could jump, and they did a lot of neat tricks, and most of the tricks that are in that video I have seen before. I love dogs. I've been watching dog videos since I was a kid, but I have not seen them actually ride their own things like that. All right, so, okay, this is another one. Let's see who came up. I'm pretty sure this is Bob Bobertson because he comes up with most of them. All right, I'm gonna say it's him. I'm pretty sure it is. Yes. Okay, that is Bob Bobertson. Okay, so apparently, I can't swear to this one, but Bob thinks it's one, and I wouldn't be surprised. They're saying that Kurt Cobain of Nirvana used to love wearing dresses, and in '93 he wore this dress for this concert. '93, I have a hard time believing that he did that way back in '93 and nobody had a giant cow. But here he is wearing this dress in '93 in this concert. And there's actually a video after that. Let me just change it so you can hear it. Okay, I'm pretty sure you could hear it if I do this. Wait. Oh, it was on the whole time. Okay. I think you could hear it anyway. All right, so here's a little interview from Kurt Cobain, a real short little blip where he says he likes wearing dresses.
I don't know. I personally like to wear dresses, and I wear them around the house sometimes, so whatever. I don't.
Just really interesting to me. Yeah, there was a famous photo of him wearing a pink jacket that has disappeared. Yes, that was a pretty popular Emmy, like 6 months ago. One thing I've kind of noticed is when some famous person dies, there tends to be a big rash of MEs on them and just weird changes and stuff. Just find that rather interesting. So yeah, there's definitely a big pattern of cross-dressing. I brought this up before. Presidents and when they were kids were wearing, like the boys wearing dresses. There's been a big thing that clothing was gender neutral and dresses were common in young boys back a long time ago. That's a new storyline for me. Shari D, I've never seen photos or videos of him in a dress. The thing is that in '93, for me, that would have been that would have been something I think would have gotten a lot of attention. Nowadays, I doubt it. But back then, they just didn't do stuff like that. I mean, you would really get attention doing that. Yeah, Scott Bilo, yeah, you just should have heard more. And then, and it wasn't just like he was like Halloween cross-dressing or something, there's that interview by him saying that he liked to wear dresses. So that's kind of taking it up another notch. So I thought it was really interesting. Alrighty. Okay, this is another interesting one. Pretty sure this is also by Bob Bobertson. Yes. All right. He was mentioning this island. Now, about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, there was a video on where it was the last tribe left on Earth that had no regular contact with civilization, as they say, was in Africa. There was some video of one of them trying to shoot or pointing an arrow at a helicopter or a plane. You could see the photo was taken from flying above. And they were the last tribe on Earth that was not in regular contact with the rest of us. Well, apparently there's a whole bunch of those tribes now. And this is an interesting one that I had not heard of, because the one I heard of 4 years ago, and at that time I was surprised because I had never heard of any tribes being out of contact with humans, regular people. But it was in Africa. So this one is over by India. It's called Sentinel Island. You can see some video here of some of the people. So these people, I think, something happened. A few people got on there by accident. There's been a lot of killing by this tribe. Interesting. I didn't actually watch that whole video. So this tribe is not in regular contact with humans, and now they are regular humans, and now they are, I don't know why I keep saying that. It sounds terrible. They are protected. This tribe's been known about for a long time, and it's believed to be, they've lived there for 60,000 years. Now, what's weird is they're saying there's only 50 to 400 people on here, so that would involve quite a bit of inbreeding, yet they seem quite healthy. The inbreeding issue is not even addressed anywhere I've seen. They're going back through the history here of people who got killed by them, things like that. We don't know much about them. But what's weird is not only have never heard of Sentinel Island, and they're not talking about the inbreeding issue at all, but here we go. Oops, where is it now? Hey, I seem to have lost the channel, but basically, where was this before? There's supposed to be about 100 tribes, uncontacted tribes around the world now. There are more than 100 uncontacted tribes around the world. They're vitally important to humankind's diversity, blah, blah, blah. And so there's a whole bunch of websites touting this 100 uncontacted tribes. I have never heard of there being 100 of them. There was just one very recently. So another find. Bob Bobertson's the one who found that Sentinel Island. And then when I looked into it, I found out about that 100 tribes. Only in Victorian days, baby boys wore them. Yeah, not in my timeline. Baby boys wore boy clothes. See, I'm going British today. I'm going to have tea. Unfortunately, I don't have anybody to bring me more, so after I slurp this one down, I'll have to go back to water. I didn't think men wearing women's clothes happened until the 70s. I don't remember men wearing dresses until just the last, it's been a thing kind of in the last really the last 5 years where you would see it at any kind of regularity. Otherwise, it was kind of a Halloween thing. It's me, Sia. I was talking about how horses look different. Yeah, definitely the eyes. They had normal round eyes. Now they have those slit eyes. That freaks me out. There's also a whole bunch of really weird, beautiful kinds of horses that did not exist 20 years ago. Silver horse, and the manes and tails on some of these horses and the colorations are just over the top. A lot of people have said the shapes have changed. I wouldn't doubt that, but I can't say that I've really noticed that either on the regular horses. Silver horses. I haven't seen the gold horses yet, actually. Let me just dig up some of these. Silver horse. This one I saw quite some time ago, before I knew of the ME, but they are beautiful. Let's see if I can find that image of that one I saw. Oh, there was one here. So this is a real horse. Look at how beautiful it is. And these are beautiful animals. And it's so skinny and weird looking. So like this, if the way the shape is, it just doesn't look right to me. Too skinny. I mean, beautiful animals, but there's another one. Now, I don't think there's any gold horses yet, but who knows? There's definitely some creatures that I don't think existed. Let's see if there's really a gold horse. I haven't checked that before. Images. No, it's. I guess the silvery ones could be goldy too. Look, this one looks very gold now. Wow, that one looks pretty gold. Look at that. Yeah, I mean, really. The horses of Akal Teke breed are famous for the golden shimmer of their coats, originating from Turkmenistan. So yeah, I guess the gold horses are here too, gold and silver horses. I guess if they don't have much gold sheen, then they look like silver. Okay, so there you go. The Mustang logo came off the cars, and now there's silver horses. Yeah, we're waiting for the unicorns, or one. Everybody's saying that, and flying pigs. Maybe we'll have arrived at our location once the unicorns come out. All right, so we'll go back to where we were. Okay, this one is another by Bob Bobertson. I covered the freshwater jellyfish lakes and how first there was just one lake, then there was a bunch of lakes with them. He found this video. Interesting. I hadn't seen these yet. I don't remember them being gold like that. These guys do not have nasty stings, so you don't have to worry about touching them. But when I first heard of this ME, I wasn't able to find any good video. So now we have good video. Okay, ringtail. I don't think this was Bob's. Fish Lake. Who came up with ringtail? Ringtail. Oh, it was Bob again. Weird little animal called ringtail. It's not actually a cat. It's its own creature. I guess they're supposed to be common in Arizona. Very cute little guys. Huge big eyes. So anyway, another potential man animal. I can't swear on that one, but it's interesting. A lot of people don't know about it. Oops, I think this was one I was just looking up into, but wasn't going to actually cover. All right. Another species that's nothing but females. Newly identified self-cloning lizard found in Vietnam. This is another from Bob Bobertson. The newly described species is not the only one that reproduces through cloning, since around 1% of lizard species reproduce with no contribution from males by a process known as parthenogenesis. I've covered that parthenogenesis before. Last time I checked, it was just fish. Now, apparently, it's made it up to the lizards. Just wait and we'll see how long it takes before the mammals will do it. Let's see. Hybrid species may be more prone to extinction because of reduced genetic variation. Unisexual species do not generally survive as long as other species of lizards, but they can be healthier in the short term. Wonder why they'd be healthier in the short term. Anyways, that's definitely a big trend. All right. Now I'm going to try to get back to all the stuff I missed last week. All right, this one. Some of these titles. Scientists discover gene behind melting zombie caterpillars. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You really just can't. Now, how did this get started? First, I noticed somewhere that they were saying that when caterpillars metamorphose into butterflies, they actually almost completely melt except for a few organs. So they're just like a liquid blah in there. I don't think that used to be the case. I'm quite sure that it was not the case before, but now they almost totally melt away and then they reform as butterflies. But then I ran into this. Apparently there is another zombie infectious disease that gets into caterpillars and triggers a kind of metamorphose where they partially metamorphose and partially melt away and turn into a sack of infectious material that rains down on the lower leaves to reinfect other moths. So this is the caterpillar that is half melted. It's pretty freaking gross, so apologies there. Here's another one. So they melt and drip down. It's just gross. Once infected, the caterpillars climb up trees to molt, but instead die and melt in gruesome fashion, spreading millions of viruses to other caterpillars. The strange caterpillar disease was discovered more than 100 years ago. But, you know, just a few months ago when I was looking into this, I could not find any of this stuff. Anyway, so they found the gene that causes them to melt. I don't know, it's just gross. See if I can find the I think I typed in caterpillars melt. Somewhere in here there was a image of what's left. Let me just try it straight to images. Yeah, I kept getting those when I was trying to get the image of what's left when they change. This one might kind of show it. I think this red spot here is all that's left when they go into their chrysalis in this timeline. In my old timeline, they would just kind of grow new parts and other parts would sort of get absorbed. But in this timeline, they basically melt into like a stew and then reform. Check that one out. Reform into the butterfly. So very interesting. Just what it implies for its ability to kind of regress all the way back to a primordial stew almost and then reform. It's very interesting. Dang, there was a very nice image that showed what was left, but I can't find that now. They keep the caterpillar shape and grow wings. Yeah, exactly. The butterflies are not that different from caterpillars. They just grow wings. Yeah, but now they melt into like a stew with a couple organs left. Gross. We have non-stinging jellyfish at my beach sometimes. They're pretty plain and boring looking, though. Yeah, the difference is these are freshwater ones, and that's what I'm saying is the ME, that we had jellyfish in the oceans, but we did not have them freshwater. The freshwater are non-stinging. Looks like Whoopee Cushion Lake. Yeah. Oh my gosh. How TrueStream Media did a video recently on how there's unicorn symbolism everywhere in products, TV. Maybe it's conditioning us for the return of the unicorn. Probably some other animal will come out that's pretty similar, and they'll go, oh, this is where the legend of the unicorn came from. Okay. So another one from Bob Bodberson. This is all stuff that I was supposed to cover last week. Physicists slow speed of light. We were always taught that the speed of light was a constant that was drummed into us. Now apparently it's not. Has been slowed to the speed of a minivan in rush hour at 38 miles an hour due to an entirely new state of matter, first observed 4 years ago, has made this possible. When atoms become packed super closely together at super low temperatures and super high vacuum, they lose their identity as individual particles and act like a single super atom with characteristics similar to a laser. So anyways, yeah, the speed of light, I guess, is not constant anymore. There's a big shock. All right, next. I got a lot, so I'm going to burn through these as fast as I can. Dust Devil. Another one that I found last week. More on that fire tornadoes. This is another one, but this one is I guess just a dust devil. This video is really weird. It looks fake, but supposedly it's real. And everything seems to go so slowly, but supposedly it's all floating. Dang, I wish I could get looks like I've got the top cut off on there, but I can't change it. So this is a GIF, but supposedly these are floating bits of like ash and stuff. But look at, they're just strolling along. This is just so relaxed. Just weird. Let's see if I can. Nope, nothing fixes it. Anyway, another weird one. The whole fire tornado thing just did not exist in my old timeline. All right, this is an interesting one. Maybe about 15 years ago, I started hearing this evidence that the Vikings, there was a couple markings that looked like they were Viking in various parts of America. Now it seems like it's suddenly quite accepted that they discovered America. It was some corner of Canada. Let me see if I can find that exact one. There it is. Oh, it's okay, this is a different one than the one I found. Helluland, Norwegian for stone slab land. And it was Baffin Island. Okay, but there's also another, this is the one I'm looking for. Meadows. Now, what's interesting about this one is, oops, spelled that wrong. I'll probably find it anyway. So this settlement here, Lonzo Meadows, not sure how it's pronounced, an archaeological site on the northernmost tip of the Great Northern Peninsula on the island of Newfoundland, which is in Canada. So apparently they found this archaeological evidence of a Norse presence here in the 1960s. So there wouldn't be any doubt that the Vikings made it this far, and there wouldn't have been that whole stink about how the markings found 15 years ago here in the U.S. would be that weird if this was already known that they were in Newfoundland in 1960s. It is the only confirmed site of Norse or Viking settlement in North America outside of the settlements found in Greenland, supposed to be there 500 years before Columbus. This just wasn't in my old timeline. The Vikings weren't thought to be down here. So, anyways, another one for me. I used to follow a lot of alt history, a species with amnesia and all that, but now with history changing from what I knew, I have pretty much given up. Yeah, you can't keep up with it. It's just impossible. Speaking of more history, let's see. I did not write down who did that Vikings one. I'm not sure if it was me or Bob Bobertson. I think that was me, but I wouldn't swear to it. Some of these, I just see them on news things. This one showed up about a year ago. I just saw it recently. Apparently, the Mormons fought a war against Missouri. I don't recall that before about a year ago. The 1838 Mormon War, also known as the Missouri Mormon War, was a conflict between Mormons and non-Mormons in Missouri from August to November 1838. The first of 3 Mormon wars. I have not heard of the 3 Mormon wars. I was curious about the Mormons a while back. I looked at their history. That was like maybe 10 years ago. I had run into some former Mormons and heard a lot of stories, so I wanted to kind of check into the history. And there were no Mormon wars back then, at least not for me. Newfoundland. Yeah, Newfoundland. Mandela Mile is correcting my American pronunciation. Yep. Typical American, we don't know how to say anything. Newfoundland. Yeah, that does sound right. Narwhals are the unicorns of the sea. Yeah, exactly. Where in the F did they come from? You know, I found out about narwhals about a year before I found out about the Emmy, and that was my thing. I was like, how did I not know about these things? Deforestation was causing extinctions. Now all of a sudden we're supposed to believe these new species were always here. Yes, exactly. It's like the real world, well, whatever we're seeing as the real world is going opposite of the storylines. These things show up and there's supposed to have been millions of them and now they're almost extinct. But what I'm seeing is the reverse. They're becoming less and less extinct, more and more numerous. He got to Canada. America is debatable. Yeah, I think that we're going to see more and more of that. Every now and then there's more, they're finding more markings. They're coming out of the woodwork. And I think the Egyptians, they're finding evidence that the Egyptians went further and further. I do hear letters characters used by Native North American are quite similar to runic characters. At least now they are in this timeline. Now everybody from antique world was in America. Egyptians, Romans, and Vikings. Yeah, we're going to have the whole kit and caboodle here, I bet. Roman sword in America. It would not surprise me. All right, let's just check into the Roman sword. Roman sword. Let's see what the experts discover. Ancient Roman remains in America. Oh, discovered off Oak Island. Ha ha ha. That's on TV all the time. Oh, interesting. Roman ceremonial sword off Oak Island. Excuse me. Was revealed by researchers involved in the History of Channel series Curse of Oak Island. I got to be a little suspicious because I'm really wondering if it might have been planted if those guys were involved. But who knows? Because that's a really hokey show, but they haven't found anything on that island of interest in like 2 seasons. So I'm going to laugh pretty hard if suddenly they find a whole bunch of stuff. Columbus discovered nothing. Yeah, in this timeline, definitely not. But all of the main inventors that we learned are now not the main inventors. Everything goes much further back. Mandela Mile. Shiva was Siva. Not for me. Shiva was Shiva for me for a long time. I mean, maybe when I was a kid, but for a long time it was. I never heard of Siva. Not in my timeline, but who knows. See the video of Tesla Tower in Texas. Tesla Tower in Texas. Oh, that whole Tesla thing. You know, that guy kind of showed up out of the woodwork about 15 years ago. And there wasn't much known about him when he first came out. And now they pretty much invented everything. Visive Technologies have erected a tower in Milford, Texas that bears a striking resemblance to Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower. Huh. Well, you know, our new timeline may be heading in a direction where Tesla's storyline can become fact. I think maybe first you hear the stories that he accomplished this, and then we move in that direction to where it can be accomplished. I'm starting to really suspect that that is how it works. So first you get the Tesla stories, More and more people read them and believe in them, and then eventually they come true. Although Tesla has become a quite popular historical figure, despite being left out of secondary and post-secondary education books, and work being seized by U.S. intelligence agencies. The monopoly J.P. Morgan had the copper used to make electrotile. Well, okay, so there's a whole storyline about how it was all covered up. The storyline keeps growing. Anyways, I think we'll hear more and more on that. He's a lot more accepted now than the Virgin I remember. Bill Bird. Yeah, and there's just a lot more information on him. And he did a lot more things. There's just always, every year there's oh, and he did this and he did that. And that just wasn't in the original storyline. All right. All right, this one is one of my favorite ones that I ran into. Another history was always wrong. So in this timeline, gladiators did not usually fight to the death. It was actually rare. They usually just, it was more of like a sporting event. These ancient Roman athletes were highly trained professionals who made their living fighting, not dying. In my timeline, it was mostly a bunch of slaves that fought to the death. But now they're saying, no, they were like just more of like a boxing thing or something. Killing off mass numbers of them would have been a bad business decision for the Lannistai who owned and trained them. Occasionally, sponsors would pay extra large to stage a fight. Oops, let's turn off all that racket. To the death, compensating the Lannistai for any lost gladiators. But more commonly, gladiatorial bouts simply had to have a decisive outcome, meaning that one of the contestants was wounded or his endurance gave out. So gladiators generally did not fight to the death anymore. That's the latest. Uh-oh, bad signal. Hopefully you guys are still getting me. No way, they fought to the death every time. Exactly. That one's a big Emmy for me. Guess Eva doesn't like my Mormon comments. Actually, I don't think I even read them. Mormons. Anyway, I try to avoid becoming like religion bashing. Yep. We had a big shift lately. Polly and I did. I don't know. There's like big shifts all the time. It's hard for me to lay it down because it just seems like a lot of my little indicators change bit by bit often. And sometimes there'll be a big shift, but there's always little shifts. I actually checked over the indicators and I haven't seen anything in the last few weeks that are major. But I felt really weird this week. I've been feeling really just weirdly anxious. I don't know how to describe it. Like there's just too much in my brain. Like my brain is overloaded. So I wouldn't be surprised. It just seems like the shifts are just happening faster and faster. Fighting with weapons usually winds up being fatal, especially with no modern medicine. Yeah, I was thinking that too. But if they're saying that they could just get tired, the storyline is kind of weird. Maybe they're going to say that they had maybe duller weapons, more armor, that kind of thing. I slept for 2 days. Oh, that was actually last night. I slept a ridiculous ton last night. I wasn't sure if I was just that tired. It seemed like it, but also with the power out, it kind of threw my system off. I went to bed early. I don't know. All right, so this one, I don't know if other people see it, but koalas were kind of my favorite animal when I was a kid. And see if you can remember how their nose was, because to me it has changed. I don't think it's a super recent change, but I don't recognize the way their nose is right now. To me, they had an ordinary nose. Their nose did not push back into their head like this. They just had a nose on the end like other animals have. It goes way back onto the forehead now. I just don't remember it being like that. Also, the ears are bigger than I recall. See, look at how wide that nose is. And those ears, they're just bigger. Very weird looking to me. The nose was only, the black part was only about half that size. Way back. It's almost like a half beak now, and I don't recognize that going way back. Look at the nose on that guy. That's just not... koalas were my thing when I was a kid, and they didn't have that funky nose. They just didn't. The ears are more subtle, but they did not have a nose like that. It's really weird looking to me. Yeah, the super sleepies are strong. Yeah, it was last night, actually. I was doing pretty good before that. Shift leg is rough. A big hill popped out of nowhere where I live. Shari D. Yeah, there's been a lot of landscape changes. A lot. Oh, here's another one. The light-colored baby koalas. They did not... The babies were not light-colored originally. They were just gray. Ears are bigger, nose didn't have the indent. Yep, that's what I see. All right. All right, here's another one I alluded to last week and never got to. We're getting it to it. 10 things you probably... I'm not finding my exact one. Pretty sure it's this one, but we'll see. All right. 10 things you probably didn't know about the lost city of Atlantis. All right. For me, I mentioned this last week. It was the lost city of Atlantis. Apparently now it is the lost continent of Atlantis. We know the location. They're talking about a bunch of weird stuff that I have not heard. They're saying that it was between the pillars of Heracles, which some places are calling Hercules, and they're saying that that location is known, came forth out of the Atlantic Ocean. So they're saying it has to be like around here. All right, the two that, let me see if this is the same article. It was 5 and 3 that were the weird ones. Atlantis was an empire. To me, it was a city empire, but it was a city. Most of us probably think of a lush green island surrounded by deep blue ocean waters when we picture Atlantis. Yes, exactly. Well, the story focuses on the island. Most of us probably assume that Atlantis was no more than this, but Plato tells us that Atlantis was actually an empire ruled from this island. So now they're saying that it was an island, and around the island nearby was a whole freaking continent. No, it was not a whole continent for me. Now on this island of Atlantis there were a great and wonderful empire which ruled over the whole island and several others, and over parts of the continent, and furthermore the men of Atlantis had subjected the parts of Libya within the columns of Heracles as far as Egypt, and of Europe as far as Tyrrhenia. So, no, for me it was just that island with the rings of land and water around it, and that was it. They had a lot of power, but that was not like this huge empire. Okay, so that's one change for Atlantis. The other one, number 3, this is another one that just kind of plopped down out of nowhere because this list is supposed to be about Atlantis. But number 3, women were allowed to serve in prehistoric Athens as warriors. No, I don't think so. But this follows the Emmy pattern of women becoming more masculine, men becoming more feminine. Every so often in America, the issue of women in the military comes up. Should we allow women to serve? Blah, blah, blah. Let's see, where does it say it now? This was not the case with the Athenians of 9,500 BC. At least not in Plato's story. The text reads, military pursuits were then common to men and women. The men of those days, in accordance with the custom of the time, set up a figure, an image of the goddess Athena in full armor, to be a testimony that all animals which associate together, male as well as female, may, if they please, practice in common the virtue which belongs to them without distinction of sex. This could be Plato dreaming up his ideal state, but maybe the people of 9,500 BC thought all the chatter from the new recruits would keep the energy at bay. Just joking, haha. But anyway, so I don't know. It's in Plato's thing. I mean, it's not exactly historical fact, but I just thought that was really interesting. All right. So that was one I noticed. This one I noticed a few years ago. St. Elmo's fire. For me, St. Elmo's fire was mythical. It was just like sailors would report weird lights. They would report weird colors out in the ocean. People would call it St. Elmo's fire. But in this timeline, it's a real thing. It has to do with electrical buildup. Excuse me. St. Elmo's fire is a bright blue or violet glow from tall, sharply pointed structures such as lightning rods, masts, spires, and chimneys, and on aircraft wings or nose cones. St. Elmo's fire can also appear on leaves and grass, and even on the tips of cattle horns. Often accompanying the glow is a distinct hissing or buzzing sound, sometimes confused with ball lightning. So it's a form of plasma. The electric field around the object in question causes ionization of the air molecules, producing a faint glow easily visible in low light conditions. Thunderstorms, high voltage differentials, electrical field. It wasn't a real, St. Elmo's fire was not a real thing in my old timeline. Let's get some images of it. It was just a mythical. Okay, so here we have a pilot's St. Elmo's fire when they're flying. This is not a lightning. This is St. Elmo's fire here. And just, no, we didn't have that. This was not standard for pilots in my old timeline. Okay, so apparently it looks something like this. I think this one might be photoshopped. I'm not sure. It's actually hard. Okay, so this is not photoshopped, I don't think. This, again, not photoshopped. This one is not. That's what it looks like. All right, you're not seeing it there. I think that one is photoshopped. But basically, let's see if that one is. Yeah, see the little lights, dots right there. Another one. So it's real in this timeline, St. Elmo's fire. Some more instrument panel, St. Elmo's fire. If you saw that, you would assume it's lightning, but it's not. It's not lightning. So it looks like helicopters get it a lot. Look at all that. No, it just did not have that. Just did not have it like that. I didn't mention this one, but this glowworms thing in the caves is getting ridiculous. They now have caves that are completely lit by glowworms. I'm just going to throw that one in because I just saw that the other day. So, very neat. Look at that. Completely lit like by glowworms. Very beautiful. These are not Photoshopped. That's what it really looks like. Gross. I mean, they're gross because they're all slimy. But they look really pretty if you don't think about how slimy and gross they are. So anyway, yeah, glowworms going over the top. All right, St. Elmo's Fire was by Bob Bobertson. Another good find. That boy keeps busy. All right, here we go. 9, strange. Here we go. Just looking at that image, the blueness in that ice is getting really extreme compared to last time I looked at it. All right, there's some of the St. Elmo's Fire. Did not have that before for me, no. Antarctic volcano baskets. This is also something I just saw about 6 months ago. There's the snow spaghetti that I failed to get to last week. Snow spaghetti in a lake in Finland. A man from Hämeenlinna, Finland, discovers strange phenomena on the lake. In the lake, there were thousands of white yarns, some 10 meters long. They look like snow. The photos published in the Finnish internet have sparked curiosity of scientists. So this is kind of a new deal right now, just in this one lake. I had also looked at another story on this, and they were saying the lake meant something like, the name of the lake in Finnish meant something like Stringy Lake or something like that. So because the lakes seemed to be named after this phenomena, it seemed to indicate that it was kind of a regular thing there. So anyway, this weird phenomena, I expect we'll see more spaghetti snow in the future, so keep an eye on that. This is another one, this halo, I think they call it a glory. Saw that a couple years ago. If you're in the mountains and turn your eyes from the sun, sometimes you can see the shadow of a giant surrounded by a rainbow halo. You must know that this is actually your own shadow designed in the fog. The halo around the shadow is formed by the drops of water in the air that fracture the light. The bizarre appearance was believed to be the work of witches. Okay, so I didn't have that in my old timeline, but it's kind of an old ME. Naga fireballs. Heard about this one about 2-3 years ago. In an area of Thailand, the Mekong River sometimes throws purple balls that rise above the water. This one, you'd think all the scientists would be down there in droves, but this is rather new for me the last few years. They're saying the formation of fireballs is the inflammation of gases coming out of the water. Okay, now, So a gas comes out of the water, but it stays in a ball-like form, and somehow it either emits light or gets caught on fire. That makes no sense to me at all. All right, I've heard about this one before. Basically just a weird structure at the bottom of the ocean. So they're saying that it's made out of stone, but this is what it looks like on the side right, what do you call it? Something radar. Ice circles. I've covered ice circles before. They are getting a lot bigger, as you can see. The crooked forest, I don't think I've covered this. These trees all just grow really weird here. This one is maybe a year old for me. Located near Nowe, Kazarnowo in western Pomerania, Poland. 4,000 pins with bent trucks. I don't know what that means. 400 pins with bent trucks. I think they meant trees. The trees were planted in 1939, but the reason they are crooked is unknown. Okay, so that covers, all of those were weird, so I just wanted to cover all of them. But that covers the spaghetti snow, which was what I was trying to get to eventually. All right, so that is everything I missed last week and some new ones for this week, but I have a lot more to go. I'm going to check in and see what you guys are chit-chatting about here. That's new, the trees. I did see that a while back, but it's somewhat new. Did we discuss spaghetti snow yet? I just joined. My notification didn't pop up. Yep, I finally got to it. I just remember St. Elmo's Fire was this cheesy 80s song. Yeah, for me it was just one of those realms of legend, like a myth or legend where people would see weird things and they'd call it St. Elmo's Fire. It wasn't a real thing. Here it's just a real thing, scientific fact. Every day's a school day. Yeah, that's true. You never know what. Sometimes, though, I just, I didn't work on this all week. And then a couple days ago, I was going to start working on all of the messages. And then I had the power outage, so I didn't get to them till like a few hours ago. And sometimes they're interesting, but when I see like, there's the ones I had, and then all the ones that Bob Robertson and other channel watchers saw, and sometimes it's just like, I can't look at any more today. I can only process so many. It's like being in cram school or something. They are talking as though Atlantis is official history. I thought it was still mythical. Jen did. That's a good point. You're kind of seeing it. They're still saying it's only in Plato's writings, but I wouldn't be surprised if now that the Plato's writings are getting more and more specific, and I wouldn't be surprised if we started to see more and more indicators in geologic record and archaeological record of it. I think that's how things start. First, they're a legend, and then they come into reality. So they used to say it was just a myth. Now they're starting to say, they're starting to shift it really subtly. Recently, Bright Insight made video about location of city of Atlantis, which is in Rakat structure. Yeah, that Eye of Sahara. The thing is, the Eye of Sahara doesn't really match neither the old writings in my old timeline nor the current writings of Plato about the city of Atlantis, other than it being ring-like. And it was an island, and so I'm not going to bite on that right yet. But, you know, who knows? Who knows what the next timeline shift will yield. Maybe next they'll be saying that area used to be partially underwater and blah, blah, blah. Who knows? But first of all, that Eye of Sahara, I think, is too small to really be a giant city. All right, so I think I've got most of the... I think I've caught up. Okay. Next one. Okay, let's finish this page. This one's an interesting one. This one's an interesting one. Okay, let me get rid of that one. So I covered before that creatures that have like a second mouth inside their regular mouth. Well, now we have stonefish have switchblades in their heads. You just can't make this stuff up. You really can't. Stonefish are already scary, and now scientists have found they have switchblades in their heads. They weren't that gross. Okay. I haven't done it in a long time, but when I was younger, I did go deep sea fishing a few times. Stonefish is what you drag up a lot, and they weren't that ugly for starters. I mean, they have a lot of spines and stuff, but they weren't that ugly. Second of all, I mean, these are a really common fish. They have a lot of spines, and so they're kind of considered a junk fish. They're always stealing your bait, so that's irritating. They weren't actually poisonous in my timeline. They were just spiny, but they weren't poisonous. In this timeline, apparently they're poisonous. Before, you just didn't want to get stuck by them because it would hurt, not that they were poisonous. But apparently now they also have a switchblade in their head, and this is the switchblade here that can flick out of their head. They're really icky in this. As if their deadly venom and spiny exteriors weren't enough, scientists have found that stonefish have hidden switchblade on their face that they can flick out when they feel like they're in danger. Stonefish are really common. I can't believe they only now figuring out they have a switchblade. It's called a lacrimal saber. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Lacrimal. Because it is located on the bone under the fish's eyes. Lacrimal saber is just a really metal-sounding name. Ha. First started to understand how the lacrimal saber worked 15 years ago when he was dissecting a stonefish he kept as a pet. Well, I guess he wasn't keeping it as a pet after he started dissecting it. He tells CNN the mechanism isn't just a cool new discovery, although it's that too. But it's not really new. If he started finding out about it 15 years ago, that's not that new. It also changes the scientific understanding and classifications of this particular type of fish. So they're saying that all the stonefish have this lacrimal saber housed inside the fish's head, and they use their cheek muscles to deploy it. Though some stonefish are venomous, the saber is not. Here's another one. Not only do they have a saber that can be flicked out, but it's fluorescent green. And I think they said here it glowed too. Oh, and the sabers glow. It's fluorescent green. So they glow with fluorescent green. I didn't find any video on this yet. I think that we'll start to see it maybe in the next 6 months or something. We'll start to see the video of the fluorescent green deploying switchblade head thing. I mean, if they keep these things as pets, they should be able to catch this on camera. There are 134 described species of stonefish, and by Smith's observation, all of them have some form of lacrimal saber. So, 134 species, and nobody's got it on video yet. Seems kind of weird to me, but there you go. All right, that lacrimal saber was by Bob Robertson. Good find. This is another one. I think this was also by Bob Robertson. All right, this one is, I'm calling baloney on this one, but apparently the whole swastika mixed up with Buddhism thing. Now, the swastika's got so many Emmys. The whole World War II and Hitler and the whole swastika thing, there's just so many Emmys. So the way it was for me is a number of years ago, they said that the swastika was actually used in one ancient Buddhist sect, just one rare ancient Buddhist sect. Since then, it has grown and grown. Now, one thing is that the swastika for Nazis now goes the other way than I remember it, and that's an Emmy for many. Now they're saying the Buddha often had a swastika on the chest. Now, that is baloney. It was not that way last year. The swastika is an ancient religious symbol. Many historians believe it was initially a fire and sun symbol. Now, that's new for me also. Last time I looked up that swastika, it did not say that. Let's see. The seal, in the Buddhist tradition of India, it is referred to as the seal on Buddha's heart. Now, in Japanese and Chinese Buddhism, a swastika often appears on the chest of past and modern images of Gautama Buddha. No, that is total baloney. However, due to the continued consternation of Western tourists, many modern Asian artists have chosen to eliminate it as one of the 32 signs of a supreme being. The debate as to whether this ancient religious symbol can be restored to its rightful place in history tirelessly continues. How such an auspicious and truly noble symbol came to represent tyrannical oppression and racial genocide is perhaps one of the greatest paradoxes of world history. So I guess they're trying to put the freaking Nazi symbol back on the Buddhas. Just nopey nopes. I'm noping out of that one. That is not. There was no Nazi symbol. Like I said, I remember when the Nazi symbol first got established as being a Buddhist symbol, and it was just one rare tribe. That was it. There's been a lot of chit-chat how the Buddhas are skinny now. Well, apparently they have Nazi symbols now on them. There's all these images of these Nazi Buddhas. I think that let me just check what the current Nazi symbol is, because I want to make sure it's still going the other way. Images. Okay, yeah. So originally for me, it went the other way. This is the current Nazi symbol. So it goes, was it counterclockwise spin now? And the Buddha one goes clockwise spin. But originally for me, the original Nazi one had the clockwise spin also. So that's another Emmy. There's so many Emmys. But there was no freaking Nazi symbol on Buddha's chest. There just wasn't. Look at that. That looks so wrong. Anyway, I'm going to whine about that one for a while. What? No, Buddha belly, Belinda Brubaker. Yeah, nope. Buddhas are skinny now. They always have been. So this, did I even cover this before? I am not sure if I've actually covered it, but yeah, Buddhas are skinny and they always have been. Now, this is Nemi for me for sure because I once looked into this and Buddhas were fat, and they said it was because fatness was a symbol of wealth and power in the old days, so they automatically just made him look fat, just kind of out of tradition. So now Buddhas were always skinny, and there is a fat Buddha, but it's actually Budai, which is a Chinese monk, and the Budais are always all smiley too. So they're jolly Budai, and they're not really Buddha. But some uneducated people, is the story, confuses Budai with Buddha. So, but no, that wasn't the case. There was no Budai. Let me see if I can find some images of Budai. Statue of Budai. So there's the Budai. So you'll still see that. It's a Chinese guy, but he's not Buddha. So Buddha's skinny in this timeline. Buddha never had the swastika anywhere near it, let alone on the chest. Yeah, that's how it was for me. Shari D, I think you come to from a timeline close to mine. He always had a lotus. I don't know the exact storyline in this timeline, but in my timeline, last I checked, which was quite some years ago, the story was that Buddha told his followers never to worship him or worship idols, and so he forbid them from having images of him. But what they did is they used the lotus as a symbol for him in kind of a sneaky way, and that is how the lotus got associated with Buddha. Then after he died and he couldn't tell them to quit doing it, then they went ahead and did it. Tasmania is going further and further away from Australia. Crazy world of normal Helen. I like that login name. Let's see. Australia. Map. Tasmania has... One thing I want to say about Tasmania is... Actually, I should get an image, I think. It's a lot bigger for me. It just keeps growing fatter and fatter. And the... Australia's it's really big now. It wasn't big like that. It was just a little blip before. And then they've got that, I think that was Kangaroo Island up there. They've got more islands. There's a bunch of little piddly ones too that they didn't used to have. It actually makes sense that they have a bunch of islands, but there's no way it was that big for me. And you're right, it is further out, but it's getting bigger, so. I've been watching that the last 2 years. It is definitely getting bigger. And this one up here is getting bigger. This is the first Nazi Buddha that I have ever seen. Yep. Buddha died of starvation, Odin Lush. In my timeline, Buddha died from at least the last few years. I think the last maybe 6 years, from 6 years ago till now, he died of mushroom poisoning is the most likely explanation. Let me see if that's true. He was fed a meal that included mushrooms. He got sick and died. So no starvation. Nope. What is Buddha? How did Buddha die? Let's see if we have death in here. Oh, weird. All right, let's try death. All right, let's try mushrooms. Nothing. How did Lord Buddha die? Let's see what this version says. What is a death? What caused the death? Buddha's in Delhi, blah, 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 blah. All of this about the journey of the legend. He died of food poisoning after accepting and offering a food that had gone bad. The texts do not agree on the contents of the meal. Some say it was spoiled pork, others poisonous mushrooms. I have not heard the spoiled pork one. In my old timeline, they said it was mushrooms. He had made some kind of comment that the meal was only that you should go out and bury this. No one other than a Buddha should eat it. Anyway, so yeah, still poison mushrooms in this timeline. Or I guess it could be poison pork or mesenteric infection. There are no hard angle symbols associated with Buddha. That is a good point. I have never seen such thing. It looks really out of place to me. I remember Buddhas being very heavy. Steve Simpleton, yes. I noticed they had been getting skinnier lately. But yeah, they were all always skinny now. No way Buddha is not German or skinny. Well, they're not saying he's German. They're saying that the swastika is an ancient Buddhist symbol that the Germans stole. But either way, that did not have a swastika on Buddha. People are saying the peace sign is evil. I guess, what is it, like the 2 horns of the devil or something? I love you sign in sign language is satanic. Ugh. Yeah, who knows? What? No, he stopped eating because he did not want to desire to be free of materialism. That's all wrong. Really? Odin Lush, so he starved in your timeline, huh? Nope. In this timeline, he died of mushroom poisoning. Or I guess pork now. But anyway, it's been poisoning for me for about 6 years. I had not looked into it before that, so I can't say it was always that, but The swastika was India, so maybe. It was not in India for me. Nope. First I heard of it was one tribe, one rare, not well-known Buddhist sect. Just one tiny little sect was when they first came out with that swastika thing. And I could buy it then, as I'm like, one tiny little sect. Sure, I probably didn't know about them. Okay, I covered the ringtail cats, which are not actual cats. This one's an interesting. This is not an ME, but it's interesting. I don't know what this even says. I don't know if you know about placebos. When they do research, they have found that if you think you got medicine, you might get better, even though it's not really medicine, and they call it the placebo effect. So when they do research, they will give you either fake pills or real pills, and so they try to control for the placebo effect. Well, now they did a research that says even if you're given a placebo and you're told it's a placebo, you might still get better. So basically, if I said this is a fake pill and I give it to you, you could still get better. It's really weird. So I don't really even get what this even means, but people can still get a placebo response even though they know they're on a placebo. You don't need deception or concealment for many conditions to get a significant and meaningful placebo effect. Are open-label placebos a promising new strategy? I don't know. That whole thing is just weird. Another one by Bob Bobertson. He found that one. All right, this one is another weird one. I think I heard this one a few months back. I had not heard of this supposed myth/fact before then. The myth was a cockroach can live without its head. I've never heard of that. I've heard a cockroach could live through like a nuclear disaster. They're that tough. Apparently there was a myth going around that a cockroach can live without its head. I've never heard that myth. But the myth is a fact. Cockroaches are famous for their tenacity. Apparently they can lose their head. They won't bleed out because they don't have a big blood flow system. They breathe through their bodies. And they'll just live for weeks without their head until they finally starve to death. And apparently they can live for weeks without food, so they can be kept, they live without their head. So without the brain, the body can still function in terms of very simple reactions. They could stand, react to touch, and move. Oh, wait, I didn't read this one when I was... The lonely head can thrive too, waving its antenna back and forth for several hours until it runs out of steam. If given nutrients and refrigerated, a roach head can last even longer. The body provides a huge amount of sensory information to the head, and the brain cannot function normally when denied these inputs. Okay, so anyways, roaches are even more gross in this timeline. Scientists have conducted many experiments with headless roach bodies and bodiless roach heads. Decapitating roaches deprives their bodies of hormones from glands in their heads that control maturation, helping researchers investigate metamorphosis and reproduction. Anyway, there you go. Never heard of it. Sounds ridiculous. I've heard they can live inside a microwave. Jerry Jams. Actually, I've seen this. I knew somebody who had a lot of roaches. I was visiting their house. I put a plate in their microwave. I heated something for like a minute and a half. And I opened the microwave and the roach ran out. It had been in there the whole time. I didn't know if it died later, but it sure freaked me out because you don't expect anything live to run out of a microwave. So yes, they could live in microwaves for me, but not headless. Look up the headless chicken. They put grain down its neck to feed it. Dean Aldridge. Yes, I actually did a whole video on that one. The headless chicken, though, it was cut here, and it had its brain stem still intact. There was a little bit of brain left that was running the lung system and stuff. So the higher brain was cut off, but a little bit of the brain was left over in those headless chickens. And there's not just one headless chicken. There's quite a number of them that have lived that way. Thanks for the nightmares. Yep, sorry. I have to have gross stuff on here. It's just a rule. All right. Speaking of gross stuff, this is a spider alert. I thought I had this one saved. All right, here it is. Best. All right. Best handling of a goliath bird eater is going to be a big old spider. This is an Emmy for a lot of reasons. In my old timeline, spiders didn't eat birds. And you started hearing about them eating, like they were caught eating a small bird. And as scientists were all shocked. And wow, look at this spider eating a bird. Well, now they have a spider called the Goliath bird eater. So he's named after eating birds. So this is something that must have been known a long time because they named a spider after it. And it's a big spider. Oh, see if I can find that video. Where did that video go? There. All right, so these are big tarantulas and they're fast. It's a little bit faster and a little bit bigger than you probably are used to seeing them. So this guy has one. It's a big freaking spider. Just the name alone, I mean, I could say maybe I didn't know about this, but there was no spiders named after bird eating before because they didn't eat birds. Look at that thing. Gross. Anyway, there you go. There's your creepy crawly for the night. This is another one you probably could have said you didn't know. Another one by Bob Boberson. Carrots were originally purple. So these orange ones were originally purple. Oh, and we have yellow ones now, by the way. I don't recall ever hearing that. I'm very suspicious of that. I can't swear it's an Emmy, but apparently they were always purple, and then these orange ones got popular. That's the story. I don't buy it, but who knows. Okay. Carrots were always purple. This one is for sure an ME for me. Bob Boberson was talking about how he didn't remember trees living like thousands of years. Yeah, I'm suspicious about that, but I think that's been developing for a long time. I remembered like, oh, there was a 200-year-old tree and a 500-year-old tree, but now there's like thousands of year-old trees. But when I was looking into that, I also saw this. I had not heard of these. Now, I had heard of like a giant fungal colony that spread across acres and acres, but I have not heard of this pando, also known as trembling giant, a clonal colony of individual male quaking aspens determined to be a single living organism by identical genetic markers. Now, supposedly, they share one giant root. I've not heard of this. I might have bought it if it was in Africa, but this is in Utah. I've not heard of any giant clonal trees in Utah, and I'm pretty big on that kind of thing. I spent a lot of time looking into it in the past. Pando is currently thought to be dying. The exact reasons are not known, blah, 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 drought, grazing, so fire suppression. They're brand new for me. I don't think they're really dying because they just showed up. They just showed up. It encompasses 106 acres, 6,000 metric tons, 4,000 stems/trunks, which die individually and are replaced by new stems growing from its roots. I've just never heard of any trees doing this. The average age of pando's stems is 130 years. The roots are 80,000 years old. No, this is just wrong. It's crazy. This is crazy. The experts note the organism's age cannot be determined with a level of precision found in tree rings. Some claim pando's age is closer to 1 million freaking years. No. This is just no. This is a huge no. This is a really big ME, pardon the pun for me. This pando tree. It's absolutely fascinating. So, what causes them to have one big root like that and just grow new stems? This is absolutely fascinating to me. So there's the pando. It's a pretty bunch of trees, too. So they all have a communal root. That's amazing. It's truly amazing. Clonal colony. Look at that. So, yeah, that's really cool. Really cool. So anyway, yeah, there were no million-year-old root systems in my old timeline. So that's more cool than the creepy spider, right? They couldn't prove it was one organism until DNA. Yeah, DNA's been around quite some time, at least 20 years. Trees with a common root. Yep. The pando. Yep. 80,000, maybe 1 million years old roots. Giant strawberry trees. Giant strawberry trees. I don't think I've heard of that one. Strawberry trees get. Oh, okay, so it's not regular. Oh, Arbutus unido. Okay, I do know about those. How did they taste? Okay, I do know about those. They have a red berry that's pretty, replicates flavors reminiscent of apricots and guavas with subtle woody undertones. Yeah, I do remember this tree at least 15, 20 years ago. They don't taste like strawberries and they don't really look like it. If that's the strawberry tree you're referring to. I know about them because they're considered a pretty good landscape plant for this region. They're really not a huge tree either. So they're kind of a nice landscape tree if you just have a normal yard. I don't recall them being called strawberry trees, though. That's interesting. Anyways, okay. Low disk space. Yeah, okay. All right, next. Got that one. Got that one already. All right, this one I ran into. Irukandji syndrome. I never knew how to pronounce this. Irukandji. It's a nasty little, what do you call those things? Jellyfish. A super tiny jellyfish that's super poisonous. Now, in my old timeline, those would just kill you if you touch them, and they were really scary to me because look at how tiny they are. You're not going to see that in the ocean, but yet if you touch it, it could kill you. Well, apparently now it doesn't always, and it has this weird thing that it does called irukandji syndrome, introduced by the envenomization of the sting, a species of irukandji jellyfish, and certain other box jellyfish. So you can go into those affected can, in rare instances, go into cardiac arrest and die. Now, it wasn't rare instances for me. It was you're going to die, like always. But now it can give you this syndrome where you have this, what was it, a feeling of impending dread, I believe it was. Irukandji syndrome includes an array of symptoms, including headaches, backaches, muscle pains, chest pain, nausea, vomiting, sweating, anxiety. One unusual symptom associated with the syndrome is the feeling of impending doom. Patients have been reported as being so certain they are going to die, they beg their doctors to kill them to get it over with. Symptoms generally abate in 4 to 30 hours, but may take up to 2 weeks to resolve completely. When properly treated, a single sting is almost always not fatal. However, 2 people in Australia are believed to have died from irukandji stings, which has greatly increased public awareness of irukandji syndrome. It is unknown how many other deaths from irukandji syndrome have been wrongly attributed to other causes. Now, these things always killed you before, but now they just give you a feeling of impending doom. That's just totally different. Totally different for me. Never heard of anything giving you a feeling of impending doom either. That's a new kind of poison. All right, so... All right, now I'm going to do some less exciting logo ones. I'll just rip through these. This one I saw, somebody did a thing, images. This O on the Ross logo was never cut for me. And it's always been there for quite some long time. Let's see. Logopedia. I really noticed it on the signage because we have a Ross here. Yeah, see, 1974 to present, the O was always cut. I want to show you the what really brought it for me was they had an image of one at, here it is. So at night when they're lit, there's no way that it had this cut. I actually thought that this was damaged signage when I first saw this because it just did not have the cut in the O for me. There's no way. Like I said, we have a Ross. No cut. All right, the other one is... Now, the reason I noticed that was somebody was bringing up that Ross had, their Ross had suddenly gotten the words dress for less under it. And I have noticed there's been an ME trend lately where stores are having explanations before. But it used to just be Ross. Now it's Ross dress for less. It used to just be Starbucks. Now it's Starbucks coffee. So I guess people are dumber in this timeline or they need it spelled out. I mean, there's certainly been times when I thought that stores should have more explanation about what they are, but if you don't know what Starbucks is, you know, you're in trouble. But anyway, Big Lots. Let's see if they have a Logopedia for that. Logopedia. All right, since 1999, what's changed for me is this giant exclamation point did not impinge on the main signage before. Also the word lots was not all tiny like that. So everything is squished in this timeline. See if I can find it on a store. I had kind of noticed this recently, but I hadn't gotten really close to the store. We have one of these near my house. I had been kind of eyeballing it, but somehow, there we go. That really shows it. No, it just wasn't, I also just don't remember the lots being so much smaller than the big. It's a nice touch. Don't remember this squishing the S. Just was not happening. Here's another version of it. I've never seen that version either. Seems like signage in this timeline has a lot of different color options. You can see there's a whole bunch of them. My old timeline had a lot more cohesiveness. Anyway, so no. I call no. Okay, weird flower. This is a creepy looking flower. There was no explanation of what plant this came from. I did try to find it. Apparently this is a flower. Looks like a demon chicken foot. Really gross. It was on Reddit. Looks like a feet of a demon chicken. I looked all through here. Nobody could ID the thing. I went on a little, let's see, this person maybe. But mostly I found them on travel type blogs. This guy mentioned them as monkey hand or chicken feet flowers. Guatemala. Oh, somebody found it. Okay. It's been like over a week, I think, since I found this. So somebody, yeah, they just found it 3 days ago. Caranthodendron. So nobody knew the answer when I was looking at the thread originally. It's Caranthodendron. Huh. Look at that. Extremely rare Caranthodendron pentadactylon devil's hand. Anyway, new creepy flower for you. Gross. Looks like it was covered in mustard. Yeah. Look at that thing. Wrong. I guess, oh, I think that's going to be pollen, is what they're calling that. All right, so oh, this one's hilarious. Birds. This is another Bob Bobertson special. This one might be a little bit in progress. Birds are reptiles now. Now, we've heard for quite a number of years they were starting to say that dinosaurs had feathers. There's a lot of sites saying that birds are reptiles now. Some sites are saying there's really no such thing as a reptile. Some are still saying that birds are not reptiles. Some are saying they should be reptiles. The thing is, birds are still warm-blooded and reptiles are still cold-blooded, but we've seen that they're starting to shift away from the pure cold-blooded storyline in a lot of creatures that used to be cold-blooded. Are birds reptiles? UCSB Science Line. Technically, birds are indeed reptiles. Birds descended from the very first reptile. Birds are also dinosaurs because they descended from a dinosaur. That doesn't really make sense. I mean, just because you descended from something doesn't mean you are it. I mean, we're supposed to have originally all descended from a single-celled organism, but that does not make us a single-celled organism. You branch out, you change, and you're not that thing anymore. Let's compare bears with other reptiles. Birds walk on two legs and are warm-blooded. All things true of theropod dinosaurs. Well, other reptiles don't walk on two legs, and they're not warm-blooded. Okay, so I guess they're saying that theropod dinosaurs were warm-blooded? Actually, that would be a new one. Theropod dinosaurs. I don't even know what that is, actually. Theropod dinosaurs, meaning beast-footed dinosaurs. Bipedal Saurischian dinosaurs. Theropod dinosaurs, were they warm-blooded? Were dinosaurs warm-blooded? New study fuels debates. Dinosaurs were once thought to be cold-blooded, but new research on their growth suggests the prehistoric beasts grew just as fast as mammals, indicating they were warm-blooded creatures. Not everyone agrees. Some suggest they fell in the middle of the cold-blooded ectotherm and warm-blooded endotherm spectrum, making them intermediate-blooded mesotherms. I did not have an intermediate-blooded option in my old timeline. Dinosaurs are considered reptiles, so scientists had assumed the beasts were cold-blooded like their kin. Okay, so it sounds like dinosaurs are no longer cold-blooded. That one I just discovered. And it looks like they're pushing birds to be reptiles now. Dinosaurs are neither cold-blooded nor warm-blooded. Some of the cold-blooded fish are now not totally cold-blooded either. Okay, so anyways, there's a big spiel about birds are, let me find some more on that. So birds are reptiles and dinosaurs are not cold-blooded. So birds aren't just closely related to dinosaurs, they really are dinosaurs. This is what most people mean when they say that birds are reptiles. Although technically, according to the phylogenetic system, mammals are also reptiles. Oh, yeah. The whole system is like stupid now. A lot of this rationale doesn't make a lot of sense to me. There's no such thing as a reptile anymore, and here's why. If we consider all animals from Junction C onwards as reptiles, then we must also label birds as reptiles. I don't see why you have to consider everything from Junction C onward as reptiles. But I guess if you're breaking down the cold-blooded, warm-blooded thing, then it kind of screws everything. So, let's see. I guess I'll just take a click on here and see what it gives. What if you told you reptiles don't exist? It has to do with our penchant for categorization. We just love putting things into boxes. Amphibia, mammalia, I have circled the groups of animals we normally refer to as reptiles. If you trace their paths back, you will arrive at Junction C, the last common ancestor of those groups. If we are to consider all animals from Junction C onward as reptiles, then we must also label birds as reptiles. We could do this, I guess, but it would be redundant. The group of animals from Junction C onwards are already referred to as Sauropsida. Hence, reptile is dead. I don't understand why, if you trace something back to C, that everything beyond C then has to be also reptiles. I don't understand why bird just could be something different. Anyways, I don't know. It's just too weird. So basically, anything you ever learned in school is all wrong. This is a stupid world where everybody just agrees. Yeah, you know, it just seems like these stories and these articles are sounding stupider and stupider. But, you know, if they eventually shift over all of that stuff to be warm-blooded and they had feathers, then there wouldn't be a reason to split them into separate categories. So I think that that's what, it sounds dumb right now, but I think if we keep shifting and those other creatures become more like birds, then there won't be a reason to separate them. Right now, the rationale sounds stupid, but I suspect that later the categories will be more clarified. Sometimes when you're mid-shift, the rationales are really lame, and I suspect that that's where we are. But I mean, people really don't think for themselves. They just, whatever is the scientist said that this is why, so it must be true. All right, this one is from a commenter, Stand Up for Freedom. I did hear about this one a while ago, but it's gotten more extreme since then. This guy balances rocks, but the extent to which he's able to do it is just ridiculous. So he's balanced all these rocks. They're not glued or anything. He balances them. I don't get how I could see maybe these ones, but how does he keep all of them together to do this? There's another. Now, I saw a little bit of that with just like 10 stones. But, I mean, how does he hold them all together here? This has gotten way more extreme. His name is Michael Grabstone, apparently. I'm like, is that his real name even? Let me just check and see if he's changed his name, because what is the chances that would be your name and then that's what you do? Artist specializing in rock balancing, photography, and videography. Grab began practicing his craft in Boulder Creek. I mean, I don't see anything about him changing his name. I mean, there's just been kind of a trend that people's last name matches what they do, but this is like really obvious. So some of these balancing, it's just like, how do you balance a giant rock on just that tip, not to mention all these other rocks? I saw some of these about 5 years ago, but they're looking more and more ridiculous. They're like twice as ridiculous now than they were last time I saw them. Look at this one. Come on. There was one here that was really insane. Let me see. Oh, this one. Really? I mean, I know people are skilled, but I'm getting really suspicious of this. So supposedly these are put together with nothing but gravity and balancing. All right, so that was from Stand Up for Freedom. Got that one. Ooh, I think I got through everything. Woohoo! Only 11 minutes late. I didn't think I was going to make it. All right, so there we are. At a furious pace. I'm going to go back and see if anybody said anything exciting here. Anyway, I just saw that, I saw this guy 5 years ago. His stuff was not nearly as good as this. Yes, balancing rocks. Yes, it's fun, but there was nothing like this before 5 years ago. And it is like 3 times, his work is like 3 times more impressive than it was 5 years ago. The fake names thing is unbearable. The thing is, like, a lot of the ones I'm seeing, they were born with that name, like Anthony Weiner. Gets busted for showing his wiener, and that he was born with that name. So this Grabstone guy, there's no indication he's changed his name that I can see. Computer is not working that well. Let's see what we can do here. I brought up Mandela Effect Bible changes on Golden State Times chat and got kicked. Yeah. I'm not surprised. I don't know what Golden State Times chat is, though. Let's see. Golden State Times. Tweets from Golden State Times. Anyways, it's considered totally crazy by most people, so... Then you're attacking people's Bibles in their mind. Dang, this computer is really giving me crap. It's not letting me go to the top of the... Come on, people. Let's see if I can get over on this one. Control room. The chat's not... Okay. There, this chat is moving. Okay, well, you are entitled to your opinion, but you don't need to be arguing about it. You can post links now. Thought you would have to be a mod to do that. Did somebody post links? Yeah, I thought you had to be a mod to do it too. You had to have a spanner. Or one, don't nag on people. They're allowed to feel sorry for themselves if they want to. I do it sometimes myself. I mean, I wouldn't make a habit of it, but we are all human. Just an amazing mind. And Tesla is an ME in a number of ways. There are a lot of MEs about him. There's a lot of kind of anti-ME people arguing on the chat today. I'm not saying he is an ME, but there's a lot of things that's changed about his story. So anyway, if people come on here and they say too much, I will block you. Especially if I see like 3 or 4 complaints from you. I mean, this really is a niche group, and it is not the right chat for everybody. I freely admit that. A bank account suddenly full with money would be a nice ME. It's me, Sia. I don't think the ME works in that obvious a way. It tries to be sneaky, but what you may find could happen was you suddenly find that you have some obscure relatives that you inherit money from. Oh, hey, look, I didn't know about this life insurance policy that has a few thousand with your name on it. I suspect that that is how it works. Things that you can't trace back but suddenly show up. I've had some of those myself when I suddenly needed money and suddenly it was there some way I couldn't possibly have imagined. So don't be surprised if something like that happens when the time is right. The ME is very sneaky, so it does everything it can to hide. Bill Bird, I am not going to even say your joke, but it is funny. Insects are animals, and 2 + 2 is 4. Insects aren't animals yet. Who the heck knows, though? I am late for a very important date. Well, do not be late for a date. It is important to have a life outside the ME, I think. Definitely. Soon I'll get that email from my Nigerian prince uncle. Yeah. I hope you'll share it with me when you get your 2 billion. Emily Joy Eckert, I had a personal ME. I've had a lot of personal MEs. But yeah. Hurry up and let us know. You can't tease. How about a future show chat where we try to group manifest something? You know, they've tried to do that on Redcon. I think you all have to... First problem was nobody could agree on what to manifest. I think you're going to have a problem right there. They didn't manage to manifest it. But I think part of it was right away there was all that disagreement. Everybody had a different plan. I suspect that there is at least some part of the you make your own reality situation. I think that personally, I mean, I don't have any proof of it, but that might also play into it that everybody has different opinions. They're not really thinking as a group. You refer to the ME as sneaky, suggests a mind at work behind it, which I believe to be the case. I suspect, too, it is sneaky in my opinion. That might be anthropomorphizing, but I do see it try to be as sneaky as possible and subtle as possible. The changes tend to sneak in where you're not looking. So I think that there is an intelligence behind it. I don't know if it's just all our own... subconscious minds or some kind of God-like thing, or maybe both of those are somehow related. But I do think that it tries to hide itself. It tries to hide the changes as much as possible. But yet then you have these weird things where bats aren't blind and lemmings don't jump off cliffs. So in some ways it doesn't hide. In some ways it does. It's kind of confusing. I don't know. I suggest we manifest a giant hamburger. I'm sure there already is a giant hamburger, though. So it worked. I bet you. There you go. Massive Burger broke the record for the largest commercially available hamburger on 29th of August 2008. $400 for the world's largest hamburger. All right, so successful manifesting right there. Oops. Liberty Freedom statue holds ice cream. Liberty Freedom statue. I think that would be the Statue of Liberty. Step 1, make sure it's not true already. But that one may be a little bit that may be a little bit too unsubtle for the ME. Disney invented the lemmings jump off cliffs. BS, never was true. Well, that's the storyline now. So 30 years it was true, and then suddenly last year Disney invented it all. That's how the ME works. It's true for years and years and decades, and suddenly new information springs out of the woodwork that wasn't available for 50 years, proving it was all untrue. So what are you going to believe? The 50 years of one version or the last spring up version? You choose. What if the original old wives' tales were actually other people from other dimensions who were adamant about their realities? Or maybe that was just the reality 100 years ago, and then it changed ME style and became just a myth. I don't know, but now when I hear old wives' tales, I really have to wonder. Because a lot of stuff that was true is now old wives' tale. Things that were old wives' tales are now true. But some old wives' tales are still old wives' tales. So maybe they were true like 100 years ago or 60 years ago. I don't know. ME changes in Bible are so insulting, hard to believe. It's Christians really want Bible to change like it is now. Yeah, that's a good point. There's a lot of icky stuff in there. Maybe it's kind of a battle thing between different... I mean, if it's a subconscious mind thing, then maybe some people wanted to change one way and some people wanted to change another way. We may not agree on how we want it to change. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm just guessing. Yeah, some of these things, I wouldn't want that change, but maybe there's a bunch of people who do want that change. Christians are outnumbered right now, possibly. I think a lot of people are more into creepy, icky stuff than ever was the case before, and maybe that's reflecting in the Bible. Yeah. See if my other... prefer to watch on the other channel, but it's like frozen. Yep. Let me see if I can reload the chat on here. Lucifer worship is everywhere here. Yeah, I mean, even if you're not into the Bible thing, what would make you want to worship Lucifer? I mean, wouldn't you just want to worship nobody? Wouldn't you not want to worship Lucifer just in case? All right, I'm totally deleting you, dude. It just wouldn't make sense to me why everybody wants to do that. Yeah, it's almost time to go. I've noticed a number of things, red things turning into yellow and green. Yeah, I haven't quite figured out the pattern. I mean, there's been a lot of things turning pink. Unimundi covered that a lot, and I've seen a few more. Anyway, there's Budai. I'm just going to go over some of these over here. Yes, it's that circle thing. I kind of doubt it's okay. I think I've covered most of this. Does anyone believe deja vu is related to the ME? Emily Joy Eckhart. I have heard a number of people bring up that idea. There's something weird about me. I have never experienced deja vu in my life. So it's not something I really understand. So I can't really comment on that. It sounds like it might be. If there's multiple timelines, maybe you're remembering something from another timeline or another time that's almost the same or is so close to the same that you can't tell them apart. But since I've never had it, it's just hard for me to really comment on that. Would you speculate that the ME is caused from changes in our collective consciousness? Maybe. I think that may have something to do with it. If you look at people now, they're just, they're a lot meaner. If you look on TV, like making fun of other people and belittling them in stupid ways has gotten really popular on TV. And maybe that's manifesting in reality with a lot of this junk. Belinda Brubaker's talking about more Bible changes. Yeah, there's no doubt there's a ton of Bible changes, and a lot of them are icky. And a lot of them just don't, and other ones don't make sense. I mean, they're just bad spelling and bad grammar. And some chats are repeat for me, don't know what to call that. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely times when I've seen videos like Mandela affected videos where from my perspective, he had already put it up, but the second time he puts it up, it's a different version. There's different filming. Then he doesn't remember ever having put it up. So it's a repeat for me, but it's not an identical repeat. I mean, it's not close enough that I thought it was the same thing. I'd be like, you already covered the subject material, but you covered it differently in my old timeline. So, I can't say I really know what it is for sure. I'm still guessing. I notice certain patterns. I've seen Moneybags do the same video again after months, and he doesn't know it. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And the one on the inside never notices. It's like you've shifted and they haven't, or they've shifted, but somehow they don't ever know. I mean, people have said that my login name changed on Retconned. From my perspective, it didn't change, but a whole lot of people say it changed, and they all say it changed in the same way. So I don't doubt it. And Moneybags' login changed for me and a lot of people, but he says it doesn't. So I've been on both sides of this. I've seen the changes. I've been on the inside of the changes. So I don't think it's fake. I mean, I don't think these people are lying. I think it really is the same for them. For any other reason, it's just that for me, when I was on the inside, I did not see that change. So if I didn't see it, it makes sense that they wouldn't see it. Someone is literally trying to keep us willfully blind, in fear, and always in conflict. That does seem to be the pattern of our world, doesn't it? Time had done some really weird things. Metaphorically, people say they believe in God, yet basically fold when the chips are down. Yeah, well, sometimes you don't always think rationally when you're scared. That's for sure. We can only do our best. People don't believe in God, but they do believe in Lucifer. That doesn't make sense. Yeah, I agree with you there. Although, I have to say, as much as I see it on TV, I don't think I've ever met anybody that believed in Lucifer and worshipped him. Now, I have met some of these Wicca people, but they say that they're like good witches. They're not into evil things. I have never met anybody that, I mean, maybe they wouldn't tell me if they were, but I've never met actually any humans that do that. So it can't be that common. I mean, a lot of other bad things I've met. Narcissists, psychopaths, even actually ran into somebody that turned out to be a serial murderer. I didn't know at the time. Saw him at the park. Did not know that he was that until later when it was on the news. I've met all these bad people, but I've never actually met a Lucifer worshiper. Prejudiced people, yes. All kinds of people. I see avatar names change all the time. They are in the ME com. Now, the thing with YouTube is you can change your avatar name easily, and YouTube lets you do that. So there's always a chance that these people changed it. But on Retconned, you can't do that. So when they change on Retconned, I know they couldn't change it. You can't change your login name unless you get a whole new account. So if they have all their old history on there, then they did not change it. And I've seen a bunch of these on Retconned on Reddit. Hopefully I said that right. The Reddit ones, you can't change your account. So because I've seen it on Reddit so much, then I am fairly accepting of any changes I see on YouTube, especially by people who seem fairly trustworthy, like Moneybags and stuff. So I think that is just a legit ME change. And as far as some of these uploadings too, it's all different footage. And some of the old uploadings have changed for me. And there's no way that Moneybags could have re-uploaded it with the old date stamp from a long time ago and then somehow changed it. If he re-uploaded it, it would have a new date stamp, and they don't. So, I mean, it's always possible that somebody tricked us, but I don't think that is the standard explanation for at least most of them. Worshipping Lucifer was something hidden, but here they are so proud of it and even sue people for using Baphomet statue. I don't know. How do you know it was hidden? Or maybe there was just a lot less of it. I mean, this timeline, there's just a whole bunch of jerks and stuff. I'm not really convinced that there were just so many people doing it back then. I mean, maybe they were, but how can you tell an ME from something that was always there but hidden? I don't think you can for a lot of them. I mean, some things, obviously, Australia was not where it is now. That I don't think that was hidden. But the thing is, a lot of these things we know couldn't have been hidden because they're too obvious. So are we going to assume that other things were just hidden and are not MEs? I don't think you can safely assume that. I wonder if I opt out of the ME experience, will I cease to exist? You know, a lot of people have said they want to opt out. They seem like they're still there. You're kind of assuming you can opt out. That is not something I'm convinced of. Masons is just out in the open. The thing with me this is going to be probably a rather unpopular ME. But way back a long time ago when I first heard of the Masons, they were an old religion that was kind of just a myth, like not a myth, but that didn't exist anymore. They were just something of history. They weren't around now. I think it was about 10 years, maybe 15 years ago, I met somebody and he said, yeah, most people don't realize that Masons exist in the present day. And he was a Mason, he said. And he at that time, they were really more associated with good things. That's really changed in the last 5-6 years. But when I first heard of it, it was on a documentary, and they were talking about was a poorly understood old religion that was almost sort of a rumor, and nobody knew if they really exist. It's like the Knights Templar kind of a thing. Like, did they really exist? Did they really? So it was very much just a myth almost. And then suddenly it became a real religion, and now it's everywhere. And so I don't know. The whole Masons thing freaks me out. I know Mandela Effects said he was a member, and whenever he talks about that, it just freaks me out, because it was in my old timeline way back. It wasn't a modern religion at all. I mean, it's an old ME for me, but it is an ME. I had a copy of the Satanic Bible once. My ex-wife threw it out, but I saw it and brought it back without telling her. She freaked out. Yeah, well, if she's religious, I'm sure she would. If all of a sudden I have lowercase b's, mention it. I don't consent to be manfected. The problem is, if you suddenly did have all lowercase b's, that version of you would probably swear that it had always been that way. And that's what's tricky. Like, somebody could come on and say, you never had capital B's before. You were always lowercase. And then you'd be like, nope. What are you talking about? That's how it is when you are on the inside. Only men could join in the original Masons for Poppy Elm. Yeah, I've heard that one. And like I said, it's all an ME for me, so I didn't really study it that well, because, I don't know, it didn't exist, I guess. Shari D knew about them when she was a child. Yeah, see, it's not a popular ME at all. I don't really expect anybody to remember that. And like I said, it was quite some time ago, but still. I don't think the Masons before were evil. When I first heard about them, they were not depicted as such at all. It seems to be a more modern or more recent version. Like, Mandela Effects said they weren't evil in his timeline when he was a member, and that he notices a lot of changes in it now. Why is it no one mentions Shriners are being bad, but Masons are? To be a Shriner, you have to be a Mason. Yeah, I don't know a ton about them, actually. The one I met said they believed in slaves and they were going to have slaves. Huh. Let's see. Is that a Mason belief or just her belief? Prince Hall Freemasonry is a branch of North American Freemasonry founded by Prince Hall. The mainstream state Grand Lodges do not recognize Prince Hall Grand Lodges. Hall encouraged enslaved and free blacks to serve American colonial. I don't know. So there's, I guess they have branches and stuff. All right, so they've got a whole bunch of different branches that don't agree with each other. I don't really see a bunch on Freemasons advocating slaves. I have to say, the people that I knew that one guy I knew that was a Freemason, he did have a lot of unsavory beliefs. Did Freemasonry condone or combat slavery? She still won't believe her name changed. Whose name changed? Was it mine or somebody else's? Dan had a capital S and many others. Yeah. I don't know. If a bunch of people said my name changed, I'm not going to argue with it. I mean, I know how the ME works, so for them, my name changed. For me, it probably wouldn't, but like my login for me did not change on Retcon. Georgia Freemasons at loggerheads over admission of black man. All right, so apparently these Prince Hall Freemasons had a role in Underground Railroad, so I guess that's good. All right, so it doesn't seem like it's really a specific tenet either way of Freemasonry that I can see. I mean, if they're an old group and slavery was popular in the old times, then they probably were going to be involved with it some. Do Masons in the U.S. do the dodgy handshake? What? Okay, it's a handshake. How dodgy can it be? Dodgy handshake. Okay, what makes a handshake dodgy? All right, let's see what the dodgy handshake looks like. All right, well, it doesn't look that dodgy yet. Is that all they're going to do? All right, pretty boring so far. Thumb over knuckles. Okay. Yeah. Ring finger knuckle rub. Oh, what do they do that? All right, a little dodgy. All right, it's getting late, so pressure with the thumb on the top of your hand. Brian's particle experiment video. Masons across the world do different handshakes depending on their degree. Could be. Would not be surprised. Anyway, it's all an ME for me. Anyway, it's like 2:45 in the morning, so I think I'm going to call it. Thank you all for coming. But it is now time for Eva to go to sleep. So anyway, this is Eva signing off for Once Upon a Timeline. Thank you for coming.